if metabolism actually slowed down with age, then humans wouldn't have survived, period. The reality is that we have gone through so many different transitions over hundreds, if not thousands of years of history. And the one thing that stays consistent as human beings adapt, and that's really what your metabolism is. Today, we're going to talk about what that is. It's not as simple as calories in, calories out. We're talking about really what controls all the functions of all the different systems of your body. And some of the misnomers right now we're dealing with, it's macros, or it's eat less, move more, or, the big one right now is Ozempic.
Ozempic, yeah.
Ozempic, or I don't even know, Glemisuta, or whatever it is.
Right, GLP-1s.
Yeah, GLP-1s.
Whatever you're doing,
I can't
peptides.
even pronounce it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And then even when it gets down to, if you're doing it, you're trying to do it naturally, it can be wearables. It can be your, the ring. What's it called?
The Oura Ring.
The Oura Ring, or the Joop Whoop.
Yeah.
The thing you wear on your wrist, or your Apple Watch, or whatever it is. And you can track everything. But what's really wild is most of what is true and has been true for literally hundreds, if not thousands of years, is still true today. And when in regards to what your body's trying to do, although some things have changed, and those things aren't that you need peptides from a Gila monster's venom injected into your leg or butt cheek in order to speed up your metabolism, shut down part of your stomach so that you digest less food and end up losing more weight over time. Most of it from muscle, not from fat. And then we start looking all skeletorish. Like that's not what's more true.
I feel like you could do this exact episode, and you could do it by like decades. Like you could literally just go through different decades, and you could
in the 80s it was cocaine.
I think that you could literally just do like all of the weird things that people have suggested and tried to
Atkins or
right for your metabolism, and whether it's like, oh, eggs are good, eggs are bad, butter is bad, sugar is good, like all of these different things and then what were, like, there was that weird stuff that people were taking, and then like their heart was exploding or stopping
fen and
whatever that was, and then there was like South Beach diet, and then
methylphenidate. It was akin to meth, crystal meth, like methylphenidate.
Right. And so you go through time, like you can go through decade by decade by decade, and like there's just more weird garbage. Like it's just like that in 10 years from now, there's going to be another thing that's weird garbage. And in 20 years from now, there's going to be another weird garbage thing.
And I think the modern person, and modern in 2025, if you said modern man, modern woman in 2000, if you said modern man, modern woman in 1990 or 1980, nobody looks at themselves as being like, an antiquity. Like we all think like, hey, we're on the cutting edge. Like because we're alive right now. This is the most modern we know.
Yeah.
But modern man and modern woman are always looking for, there's got to be this new idea. There's got to be new improvements. There's things out there or whatever. But the reality is, if anything that modern research has truly confirmed, it's that it has not, human needs have not changed that much. So today we're going to cover why your metabolism actually doesn't slow with age. That last part's very important. What really shuts it down if it's not age? What's shutting it down? How sugar and ultra-processed foods ultimately screw up and hijack our biology. Why exercise alone doesn't fix this. I think it's a huge one. And then why the nervous system, we're chiropractors, so why the nervous system is a missing piece that nobody's actually talking about. I think that's huge. But I want to dive into this. So
so I think it's interesting to say that you turn 30, you turn 40, you turn 50, and like it's not just, we talk about this like today, let's talk, it's in the frame of metabolism, but just the idea that like your body breaks down, like you hit a certain ages and your body breaks down, and it's just not true. And you can talk about like this in terms of you turn 30, you turn 40, you turn 50, you turn 60, and do you think that your body just suddenly forgets how to burn energy? Well, do you think that it forgets how to regulate your weight? Do you think that it forgets how to produce energy, like how those mechanism happens. Like all of a sudden the body's just like, you know what, we're doing other stuff now that we're old. That's out of here. And
it might feel that might feel like a reality to some of you guys. Like, don't get me wrong, we hit ages and we're like, oh, I don't heal like I used to. There is truth to that we don't heal quite like we used to, but it's not age. It's that the stressors of life, the things are starting to catch up to us. We're going to talk through some of that and what that really looks like. But when we look at this whole thing, when it comes to metabolism, I want you to delete a couple things real quick. Metabolism's not your age, it's not a number. Delete that. Let's get rid of bad mindsets right away. It's not a caloric equation. I don't want you to have to focus on that. And it's not something you either have or don't have. I think that's the other one, is people think I have a good metabolism. My mom had a good metabolism. You know, my sister and I have bad metabolisms, or whatever that looks like. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's not true. But here's what it is.
Hey, but here's something funny, because that might sit hard in someone. Someone hearing this might be like, oh,
we have bad metabolisms.
Everybody in our family is overweight because we just have bad metabolisms. But that isn't the only thing you have in common, right? Like if you have an entire family like that, it isn't the only thing you have in common. There's other things you have in common too.
Yep.
The way you eat.
Yeah, you guys.
The way you move.
Maybe, people, whether you're good, bad, metabolic activity, fat, skinny, this, that, whatever it is.
Sure, right.
In families, there's tall, short, there's all this, but here's the one thing is families tend to eat together. Yeah. They tend to eat similarly to each other. They tend to have similar activity levels. They have similar schedules. They work together. Like, their sleep schedules tend to be similar. Their habits, when it comes to how much TV they're watching or things they're doing, those tend to be similar. So when we talk about metabolism is actually the opposite. And we're going, okay, let's not look at just those lifestyle habits. Let's look into the function of our breathing, our healing, our hormone production, our brain activity. How well are we digesting food? All these things are the makeup of our metabolism. Your metabolism is your body's engine, and your engine doesn't just randomly stop working. You can have an efficient one or an inefficient one, but it's built. Just like an engine is built, your metabolism is built. And then you build your metabolism based on what you do every single day. And it's our lifestyle factors, our lifestyle choices that we're actually making that build this. So when people say, I have a slow metabolism, right? What they're really describing is a process that we refer to as adaptation.
Right.
Adaptation is, there's decades of research on this that really talk about adaptation includes, what you're putting in your body, how you're responding to chronic stress, how you're responding to things like sleep, whether it's good or bad, poor sleep, good sleep, inflammation, stress levels, nutrient deficiency, and our body will downshift over time. And I think the common factor is that like 0 to 18, you're just like out to get after it in life.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And then you start dating, you start going out to eat. Maybe, if you consume alcohol, dates can include alcohol. Then you're working a real job after college. Stress levels start to go up. Yeah. You get married. There's conjoined bills. There's student loans. Next thing you know, you're having kids, and like the stressors of life actually start happening, and the patterns, the good patterns start to sometimes shift, and then the bad patterns, it can become easy to go to sleep a little later. It can become easy to do these things. So this whole thing, when we talk about shifting gears when it comes to metabolism, everybody having an engine, it's what are we getting out of that engine? Are we maximizing it, or are we minimizing its performance? Are we downshifting, or are we upshifting in terms of that?
Yeah, and listen, there's an accumulation factor that happens in lifestyle, right? That we used to talk about this, a lot in the gym. There's so many pieces of this, so many parallels. Like when we start getting into this, like the idea of metabolism and what it is, because so many of these conversations happen. Like when I owned a gym for 10 years, so a couple things to note here. One of them is that there's an accumulation that happens day in and day out when you're working your body in the direction that it needs to go. So let's say that you are an extremely active and extremely healthy person, and you go through a season of increased stress, decreased movement, foods that are inconsistently, unhealthy for your body that you never really ate before. That snowball, so to speak, that starts accumulating as it's rolling downhill and things are starting to get out of hand, right? It's a little bit easier to reverse that and push it back up the hill, get your fitness back, get your metabolism in the place
when
where
you're
it wants
that
to
far
go.
up the hill.
Right. And when you've only course corrected, let's say we're only having an issue for a day or 2 days or a couple weeks or a couple months where we have like a short season, right? As opposed to a lifetime of really reversing lifestyle choices. And I've noticed, one of the things I really noticed is that in the gym, when we had an individual that was coming in, one of the reasons why we love families in our office, like the entire family in the office, is that when I had one individual that was coming to the gym, and you have, for example, you have a wife that comes in and she's like, man, I just really want to change. Like, I got to get healthy. I need to change my physique. I need to change how I feel. I just need to feel healthy again in my body. Or you have a guy that comes in and says something similar, right? If the spouse isn't on board, if the people that you live with aren't on board, if you are going home every day and you're making yourself a chicken breast and, some broccoli, and you got a spouse, you got a wife
cheesy
or a
bread.
husband who's over there, who's like, what is this nonsense?
And a Frappuccino.
And they're ordering a pizza and you're just like staring at them while they're eating, something like that. And then you're trying to make some choices that are building health in your body. Like, I'm telling you, it is just a recipe for disaster, and it's not a recipe for long-term success. Right? That's why when the whole family's in on it, like, you really got, like, you're really going somewhere with it.
And it is a family. We've seen it so many times. I don't remember who said it, but they said, if your dog's overweight, you don't walk enough.
Right.
Like that's a really key thing. And when it comes to families, if you have children who are overweight or yourself or, slow metabolisms or whatever, and you're looking at this, or if it's fast, like here's the weird thing. I actually was looking through my notes on this and I saw this a minute ago and I thought, this is crazy. But women's metabolisms in their 30s and 40s slow down because they didn't eat enough in their 20s.
Yeah.
Men's metabolism slow down in their 30s and 40s because they ate too much in their 20s.
Yeah.
So it's the what's this called? A pendulum. The pendulum of it's both ways, and in the middle is healthy. In the middle is function. And so guys can get away with all this because, maybe the athletic ability, or they're doing this or they're doing that, and they're overeating and they're not doing it in the best ways ever. Yeah. They're putting in calories because they're burning them off like crazy in their 20s and they're athletes or whatever. In college, I saw this happen all the time. But as soon as they stopped, boom, their metabolism went to crap. And then girls were almost the opposite, where some of them were athletes and they were eating a lot, but a lot of times I saw actually they were under eating. Yep. And then what happened is they quit sports and boom, they gained weight. And it's like, wait, how does that happen? One's under eating, one's overeating. Right. And then because neither one of them are healthy, this is not a caloric thing. This is not calories in, calories out. Technically on paper that works out in a science lab, but you're not a Bunsen burner. We've talked about this. Like you're not a science project. You're not a Bunsen burner. That we're not just purely like lighting a match and burning off calories. There's enzymes and nutrition involved. And there's all these chemical reactions. There's healing that's happening in your body. There's years of stress you're overcoming. Are you moving? Are you sitting? What does your job look like? These are crucial, but I will tell you, we'll go through a couple key things that are the same for everyone.
Yeah, and let me just point out too, like especially when you're talking about that, the idea of calories in, calories out, because there's two pieces that I'd like to point out here. One of them is that there was an example that we used to give to all of our clients that came in, because calories is this one's a tough topic because some people are so ingrained in like the just do the math. Like this is the math of it. Like argue with mathematicians if you think that calories, actually don't matter at all. And I'm not saying that like calories have zero to do with anything ever on planet Earth.
And again, in a lab, when you're working, like I went through chemistry labs. So when you're actually like measuring calories and burning them off and like all this stuff, you can actually measure all this. But in a body, you're not a science lab, so it does function differently. And I think I know exactly the example you're going to. So go ahead, because it's such a no-brainer.
So you have somebody who says, okay, you got 2,000 calories. You're going to eat 2,000 calories today, which, in some fitness settings is generous.
Even say they were twins.
Right. Yeah.
This study was actually done. Maybe we'll mention this, but this study was actually done. But say you have two people that are literally genetically the same. Two people, they're both 5'10", 180 pounds or whatever it is, right?
Yeah. 2,000 calories. You're going to eat 2,000 calories that day. One person comes in and their 2,000 calories is exactly what it's supposed to be. Lean meats, fruits, vegetables, little sugar, little to no grains. That's good fats, good healthy fats in their diets. That's
and the other one eats
eating.
2,000 calories a day of donuts and Coca-Cola.
Right. You got 2,000
so
calories.
What you're telling me is if they both have the same activity levels, that they're going to get the same output because they're both just eating 2,000 calories.
Because calories are calories.
Calories are calories. Right. And the reality is we all know that that's complete caca, and that's not how it works. That's not how it functions. No. And these two people are going to look wildly different.
Yes.
Wildly different. So it literally almost, and I don't want to say has nothing to do, but it almost has nothing to do with calories. Right. I've seen people eat 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 calories a day of the right things. Yeah. And I've seen people calorically restrict on the wrong things. Yeah. And some people continue to ruin their metabolism, and other people get their metabolism going way faster. And so the reality, and one of the biggest things we teach, is nutrient density. Yeah. Nutrient density is one of the largest things. If you want to get your metabolism going, eat foods that are extremely nutrient dense. The most nutrient dense foods on the planet, outside of fruits and vegetables, those are some big ones. But the number one is properly raised, or better yet, not even raised, just wild animals. Wild animals eat so much grass, so many bugs who are eating grass and whatever, the wild animal meat. And if not wild, then at least pasture raised. That cow had to eat thousands of pounds of alfalfa and sprouts and clover and this and that. And for you to eat a pound of that animal flesh actually delivers so many nutrients. Now, second to that is obviously fruits and vegetables. Those are your next two big ones. But the anti-nutrient, and I think this is quick shift to go the other way. What's the number one metabolism destroyer on the face of the planet, with the exception of what man has also done to it? Mm-hmm. But the number one is sugar.
Yeah, and what's really interesting? I feel like this is an obvious one, but I feel like there's a little bit of some murmuring and some swing back and some pushback on people that are like, don't beat up sugar so much, and why are we coming so hard at sugar? And the real deal with sugar at the end of the day is that it's incredibly addictive and it's incredibly horrible for you.
Yeah, it's an anti-nutrient. What that means is it actually requires nutrients from your body in order to process it, which means if we have this engine going called your metabolism, and your metabolism is taking nutrients and turning them into productivity, whether it's building muscle mass, burning off fat, all this. Well, if we're taking in sugar, it depletes us of nutrients to be able to digest and utilize that sugar. And then on the other side of it too, the sugar is just not the best fuel. And so I think that that's the big key that people need to understand, is that healthy cells, with the exception of a tiny little bit, and this is where you get into it when it comes to running and endurance sports, where they talk about glucose. Yeah. Your body only needs so much glucose, and it can actually take that glucose. You can break down your own muscle tissue and make glucose if you need it. It's called gluconeogenesis. We don't need that much sugar. But where is it found? It's found in coffee drinks, energy drinks, sports drinks, healthy smoothies. It's found in all these quote unquote healthy foods.
Yeah. And when you look at high fructose corn syrup, when you look at refined sugars, when you look at sweeteners that are added into everything, I think that this is the real thing is that if you want to get away from sugar, first of all, you just gotta you gotta rip the Band-Aid off, and you just gotta get off of it for a chunk of time. Mm-hmm. What is it? I mean, I think before we've said at
least 14 days.
14 days of
10 to 14 days, and you'll kick the withdrawal effects from it. If you're going longer than 10, there was a metabolic addiction to sugar that, like, maybe not you mentally or whatever, but your body was running on it way too hard.
Right. And the interesting thing about sugar in general is, like, you go through those 14 days and you get off of it. Like, you're diving through all of these things, and you're probably not, if you're trying to get off sugar, you're probably not eating processed foods. If you can go 14 days and you can, I mean, I don't know what the expectation is with how much your sugar intake is, but, of refined processed sugar, it's like 0, right? When we've done Whole30s before, it's been 0 intake of sugar. That is, a white cube of sugar that's added into something, right? Well, but you're not eating packaged food if you're doing that.
And then I think the second of that is we got into, like, juicing, right? And juicing can be awesome. It can be a vehicle for, I think when people have done juice fasts and they start to understand, like, I'm going to eat more fruits and vegetables, but it's hard to eat this much, so I'm going to juice. And we're not anti-juicing. In fact, I actually like juicing a lot. But when it comes to juicing, if you looked at our recipe, it was like kale and spinach and broccoli and carrots and this and that. And the
sweetest thing in it was like a lemon.
When people start consuming fruit juices, high amounts of fruit juices, it has a lot of fructose. Fructose is primarily processed by your liver, and when your liver gets overloaded with too much sugar, so whether it's sugar from fruit, and the reality is, if you're to eat fruit in its whole form, you're not going to overload your liver because A, you're not going to eat enough of it, and B, you have fiber to go with it. Mm-hmm. But if you're, like, juicing it, or let's go to the other extreme, you are drinking Coca-Cola and sugary Starbucks drinks or whatever, you're overloading your liver, and then what happens is your liver starts storing that fructose as body fat.
Yep.
And so, when you're trying to get your metabolism moving in the right direction, what we want to make sure of is we're not adding to the equation in terms of fat, because fat is our body trying to store something because we're not using everything we have. And in reality in life, we're meant to be hunter-gatherer. This is weird. Mm-hmm. This even goes scripturally that we're not meant to worry about tomorrow. God tells us, even look at the sparrow. Do I not feed him? Do I not clothe him? Do I not do this? Like, even in ourselves, like, our nutrition should be not worrying about tomorrow. It shouldn't be, feast or famine, so to speak. It should be eating what we need for right now, eating what we need for the next 4 to 6 hours.
Yeah.
And eating what we need for the next 4 to 6 hours. And if we really do that, then it really shifts the gear and we're maximizing our potential. So if I'm not working out this morning, maybe eat a little bit less.
Yeah.
I'm working out this morning, add in a bunch of protein, you know what I mean, pre and post. And I think this is where it really gets interesting, because now we get in this whole insulin response thing. So this is the hormone that starts to get driven from this intake of sugar. Insulin isn't bad. I think it's gotten this big misnomer because of the GLP-1s, but insulin isn't bad. It's actually essential. We need insulin. Chronically elevated insulin is what locks fat inside of our cells. And where does that insulin get elevated from? It's mostly from ultra-processed foods, these things that spike our blood sugar, and then it crashes, and we have to dump insulin and to help elevate our blood sugar levels. Insulin is kind of it's the helpmeet to this whole sugar thing of taking this influx of sugar that goes into our body, and insulin's job is to try to spread it out over time.
Yeah.
But when we keep dumping in large quantities of sugar, and especially all at once, this goes back to, you remember the story of when we were pregnant with Hudson?
Oh, yeah.
We were pregnant with our firstborn.
Yep.
And the doctor wanted to do the the gestational diabetes test. Yeah. And he goes, hey, we're going to do this test, and we're going to have her swallow 50 grams of sugar, like a Coca-Cola, basically, but in a 1 ounce glass. So even a Coca-Cola is in a 12 ounce bottle or can. Yeah. It was a 1 ounce or 1 or 2 ounce shot with 50 grams of straight up sugar in it. We're like, no, we're not doing that test. Why? Number one, it's stupid. Like, why would I swallow 50 grams of sugar in a 2 ounce cup?
This is a common theme. Like, if you just keep listening before and post, a common theme is that it's got to make sense.
Yeah.
Like health makes sense. It's got to make sense. This test doesn't.
You had been working really hard on your health. We were really working hard to get pregnant and have a child. And so we're dialing our nutrition and we're working on not eating sugar. Yeah. And then doctor goes, we're going to have you swallow 50 grams of sugar in a 2-ounce cup. And then we're going to monitor what it does to your blood sugar. And it's like, what do you think it's going to do?
I hadn't had 50 grams of sugar like that in a sitting in years. I mean, it'd been years. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to come in here.
It would be, the equivalent would be, I have never drank alcohol in my life, but I'm going to have you drink 3 shots of tequila and see how you do over the next hour. It's like, that's stupid.
That doesn't make sense.
That's like, how do you think I'm going to do? Where the weird thing is on the other side of it, if you consume the average amount of sugar, your insulin has adapted to it, and you could consume that 50 grams of sugar, and you're not going to spike anything because your body has adapted. But if you're not consuming sugar, it adapts very poorly. And if you're consuming too much sugar, it adapts very poorly. So all the people in the middle, it's like, oh, you're good. The average is okay. And this is what I hate about medical tests, is the average is what they're going after. They're not looking at health.
Yeah.
And they're looking for spiking disease, but the reality is they're measuring it based on the middle. And the middle, largely, unfortunately, in the United States is not healthy at the moment. And so this was like a weird test to us. And I remember thinking, we're not doing that. So if we don't do that, then what should we do? And he's like, well, she could go home and eat 35 or 40 gummy bears. She could eat 40 gummy bears and then monitor her blood sugar for the next hour. I'm like, we're not eating 40 gummy bears. And this is modern medicine. And this is what's crazy. And it's this whole idea of glycemic index and your glycemic variability, blood sugar swings. And don't get me wrong, everyone's different. But if your blood sugar swings, if you're high and low, if you're lethargic in the middle of the day, or, you consume some sugar and you're like, I just need a little sugar in my system and I'll get going. You have that Starbucks in the morning, you're like, boom, 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 2 hours. And then all of a sudden, feeling that crash. It's called glycemic variability, and it's not a good thing. It's actually a strong predictor of metabolic diseases and disorders. And this is where GLP-1s thrive, because you can insert this peptide that starts counteracting with these weird blood sugar responses that you shouldn't be having, and it starts overriding your body and it starts taking over and causing you to process this in a very different way. And one of the ways it does it is you don't actually digest it, and it doesn't make its way into your bloodstream the same way it normally would, but it does so by actually kind of shutting down some of the normal pathways and systems. So, people go what's wrong with them? What's wrong? Well, what's wrong with them is they're actually working against the design, and your body's trying to adapt and use these different things. And then when we start shortcutting and we start, these are crazy analogies, but I remember you used to talk about, the easiest way to lose 10 pounds as quickly as possible is cut off an arm. It's you can lose 10 pounds really fast if that's your goal, but the reality is that doesn't actually create the outcome you want. When it comes to GLP-1s and people start injecting these things, they get the outcome. Don't get me wrong. They lose weight.
Right.
But they lose weight at the cost of it creates more stress on this whole metabolic pathway long term. But it looks like it's working.
Yeah, but it looks like it's working.
It looks like you're losing weight. It looks like all this, but you can look at someone and if you have taken these, hopefully you haven't taken them to the extreme, but if you look at people who've taken them to the extreme, you can look at people and see that they don't look healthy.
Right.
They start losing fat in weird areas. They start losing fat around their eyes. They start losing fat in their facial structure and their bones.
Right.
They start losing fat in areas where it's not normal to typically lose fat.
Right.
And it's really strange to see that. So
there's a guiding principle that we have in our life or that I have in my life that I can say. And it's just this idea that there is no biological free lunch, right? And that if you're coming into, like, if I'm making a health decision in my life and I'm looking at it and I'm going, should I do this or should I not do it? Like, one of the things is, I mean, we were having a conversation the other day. If there's something that isn't clearly nutrition, apple good, donut bad. Like, that's pretty, it's pretty clear.
Yep.
Like, okay, do you want to get into the nuances of what kind of apples and like what's, whatever. But like generally, we're talking about a general, salad good, dessert bad. Like if you're looking at things generally speaking, right? But the idea that there just isn't, if somebody comes walking down the street and without a shadow of a doubt that in order to be healthy, I need to eat well, I need to exercise, I need to get adjusted, I need to sleep well. Like, there's some basic tenets of I need to keep my mindset, in the correct place. Those are all things that are, basic tenets of health that are like, yep, that makes sense. And that's what keeps you healthy. If somebody comes walking along, right, and they go, don't worry about that. I got you. I have this little pill. It's magic.
Or a shot. Yep.
Or sub-in XYZ. I mean, who knows what it could be. I sprinkle powder on you. I wave this over you. Whatever it is. And it's like, and you no longer have to do the things that make sense.
Sing that
like
dance that Ellie was doing today. I just have to do this dance in front of you.
Yeah, I just got to do this little dance in front of you. And then now you no longer have to do the things that make sense. Or you could still do those things, but really this is going to be the thing that's really going to get you there. Those things inherently, like, there's something inside of you that feels incongruent and you just know it's not right. Yeah.
So right now we're talking about GLP-1s. I don't want to beat the horse, so to speak,
sure,
once it's dead, but it's the fen of the 90s is the GLP-1s of today. And, give it 10 years, it'll be XRG, whatever, or some crazy, whatever it is, it'll have a different name. Like, I don't even know how fen was the name, but, like all these different things. I think one of the major things that people need to acknowledge, and I think you and I, if we're being completely vulnerable, this is the area where we ourselves have had to go, this is real. And that's stress.
Yeah.
Stress and cortisol. So when you're 9, hopefully, like if you grew up in a good family and you had a pretty normal family life, as a kid, you shouldn't have high stress levels. Don't get me wrong. I know the opposite exists, but generally speaking, kids, you're playing, you're having fun. Teenagers, you think you're stressed. You're not really stressed. You get into adulthood, college, whatever, it starts to pick up a little bit. You're studying for exams, things start to happen. At the same time, again, I acknowledge that like when I was in college, I don't think I ever ate Stouffer's lasagna until I got to college and on a college budget. So I started eating things I normally wouldn't eat. But honestly, it was the stress levels of studying for exams and board exams and, and honestly, to some degree paying my own bills and doing whatever. But then you get married, and as a married man, you're taking care of a woman, and now it's like, it's on the line now, it's real. And then there came kids, and then the bills, they grow. Yeah. And all this. And I think the one thing, I look back at pictures of myself when I was 30 and I'm like, oh, I look so young. I look so good. And honestly, my nutrition has not changed remarkably. And I mean, there have been times where it's wavered a little bit, but I think we're pretty good about getting back to being anchored. We value that very high. Yeah. I think there are a few things that we've had to always work at tweaking, because I think that's just part of life and what you work on. Schedules, like we used to have all the free time in the world. We thought we were busy, and we still had time to work. I used to work out 4 or 5 times a week, and then twice on Sunday with my brother. And honestly, like that schedule has had to shift or change. So it's learning how to incorporate in your life. But the one thing that unfortunately is not really avoidable is stress levels going up. And I think that that's the number one thing that people don't acknowledge, and that stress levels actually affect you hormonally. They affect a hormone called cortisol. And we have done episodes on this in the past where you cannot, unfortunately, minimize all the stress in your life. It's never going to happen. You can try to, and if you've done a good job of it, hooray, good for you.
Yeah.
But what it usually means is your kids aren't playing sports. You're limited on how many activities you're having at your house. Like you have to really rein life in. You're like walking out in the woods with your dog while singing Kumbaya and reading your favorite hymnal or book, and that's your free time.
Right.
But if you're living like a normal human life, like as the schedules increase, everything starts to change, and you don't realize that stress is actually creating a response hormonally in your body that creates cortisol. Well, in order to create more cortisol, guess what you really need to fuel that outside of just stress? Stress plus sugar equals high amounts of cortisol, and then eventually high amounts of fat storage, because that's what it's working towards. And one of the concepts that we've talked about is you can't minimize all the stress, but there's a difference in stress.
Yep. Yes.
There are stresses that take from your body and stressors that thrive off of sugar and the poor things because they add to the same burden. And then there are stressors that actually thrive off of the opposite. And so there are eustress and distress. So distress, DISTRESS or hyphen STRESS. And then eustress is EU. And I would challenge you guys to look this up because this is very interesting. I don't think most people have ever learned this. But eustressors are the combatant to distressors. Mm-hmm. So if you are like, oh, life's so stressful right now, life's so stressful. Typically what they're saying is life is so distressful.
Right.
Schedules are crazy. Work is crazy. They added hours at work. They just cut employees, so I'm having to work more hours. I'm not eating as intentionally. I'm going through the drive-thru more frequently. I'm taking the kids to Jesus Chicken. I'm doing all these things that are not necessarily in our norm, and we're in this distressed state. Well, right. The reality is that that is a stress, but there's this opposite stress that actually overcomes it, and that eustress is working out. It is walking in the woods with your dog, maybe singing Kumbaya. It is praying. It's meditating. It's these actions. And what's really weird is when you spend intentional time in these areas, typically if you do them very intentfully, it's like 15 to 30 minutes in any given area. You can do this once or twice a day. You can do it in meditation and prayer and in reading your Bible in the morning, and then later on in the afternoon, do it via exercise and walking the dog or whatever. But if you do these a couple times a day very intently for 15 to 30 minutes, which is total less than an hour of your day, it actually can offset all of the distress in your day. Be like, oh, I don't have time for that. We don't have time for it because we're like distressing ourselves to the point of metabolic dysfunction.
Right.
And all we're saying is it's not even 10% of your day.
Yeah.
We're talking about probably 5%, 7% of your day that if you spent that very intentionally, this whole idea of eustress really offsets that. And the stress idea on a cellular level, it actually changes how your cells function.
There's so much inside of the stress conversation, which I love. And we've done full episodes on this, on like eustress and distress, and even how categorically eustress and distress isn't the same for everybody on the planet. Like categorically, you can say fitness can be a eustress and a distress.
Yeah, some people love it, some people hate it.
Your kids can be a eustress and a distress, right? Yeah. Your family can be a eustress and a distress. There's some books you read can be a eustress and a distress. Like they can, there are things that can fall into either sides of the category for different people, and it can fall in different sides of the category in different seasons of your life, right? For what you're doing. And so it's such an interesting thing. But when we're looking at exercise is a stressor. Right? Mm-hmm. Like it's a stressor on your body, but it's a beneficial stressor. But it needs to be paired with that adequate recovery. And there's so many of these conversations in nutrition that are similar to like what you pair things with, right? Like what you pair a carbohydrate with when you eat, what you pair, something with when you're doing it. And
exercise and water go hand in hand. Like if
right.
you're dehydrated and you're exercising, or if you're not, like you said, you're not fueling properly after it, putting protein back in the system after you train muscles, those things all they can change the total effect of what's going on.
They can absolutely change
this is one of the things that we're going to be talking about in our metabolic reset is how to pair them together.
Yes.
How to actually do this thing. So if I'm exercising, what do I want to do before? What do I want to do after? What do I want my mindset to be in the moment? What, Dr. Ryan, I don't like exercise. Cool. One of your first things is change that mindset.
Yes.
Don't exercise in that mindset.
Yes.
So do something before that helps you shift your mindset, and then do something afterwards and give yourself a reward in terms of food to fuel it, something that you like but is also fueling it, and that'll start changing that whole paradigm. And your metabolism is this reaction to everything you do. Your metabolism isn't outside of you, it is you. You are your metabolism. It's the makeup of all your cells and how they're functioning. And so people talk about like point to your metabolism. You know, we do this with like immune system. Point to your immune system. If I said point to my nervous system, I go brain because I know it starts from here, right? Mm-hmm. Point to your circulatory system. We all point to our heart. That's where it starts. Right. Point to your digestive system. We go stomach. Point to your metabolism. It's your whole existence. It's every cell of your body, and it's the reactions that are happening in those. So I think we have to look at it from that global perspective, and getting into this whole idea right now that you can just simply put a shot in, and your metabolism starts to reset. We just don't subscribe to that. So I think we need to even do a deep dive, maybe even more into this. This one's awesome, and we want to see you guys in our metabolic makeover. If this is something that spoke to you, make sure you click on like, subscribe, and also we'd love to see you in our office at alignhealthcenter.com.